This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by the head of Wasserman Boxing, Kalle Sauerland. Kalle, how are you?
I am very good. Double fight week, double trouble. I'm in Riga. The other half is in Newcastle. So no, it's good. Obviously, you know, Newcastle was a very late addition to the schedule for the rest of the year, and you know, it's good. It's lucky we have a good team on both sides, so we have to split the team up a little. But here we are. Rumbling Riga is on here, and Eubank Jr. is marking his road back in Newcastle, not so far away.
Will we be able to see Rumble in Riga here?
Yeah, we were just working on something that there will be visibility in the UK. Unfortunately, it's a busy night for boxing in the UK, so it's not about money really. It's about getting the exposure in the UK for us. So yeah, no, but I mean, it's kicking over here. I mean, it's always such a red hot atmosphere. I know I was obviously we promoted the show at Wembley last week. Then we had Austria a few weeks before that. But this is the one I've been looking forward to, because the atmosphere in that arena in Riga is, I've got to say, it's up there with the big English crowds, and it's fantastic. It's so loud, and they're so passionate, and you know, it's a voluntary. It's against Artur Man, number 6 IBF, tough guy, Kazakh school, German. You know, he's challenged for a world title before, came up short as a young guy. Very good trainer. So it's going to be a tough night. And with Mairis, he sometimes switches off when the opposition isn't that stellar. I remember the quarterfinal in Chicago against Noel Gavor was a tough night for him. Sort of didn't take him the full ticket. So I don't expect that now. He's been in camp a long time, since the final, since becoming the World Boxing Super Series champion. And it's always special to be involved in the best of a division. And, you know, there's no one out there who would say that Mairis Briedis isn't the best cruiserweight at the moment. So very, very exciting week.
Mairis, there were rumours he was going to go up to heavyweight. He's now accommodating his a voluntary at cruiserweight. Will he stay at cruiser? And is that a Kalle unification possible?
I mean, look, first of all, the heavyweight rumours, that they're not just rumours, they're true. I mean, he was looking to go up based on our discussion, because I said, look, there's a big fight coming. It was Fury Joshua coming. Mm-hmm. I think after that, the belts are going to go everywhere. And you are a 3-time world champion. You'll get right up the pecking order, and you'll be right in line for a world title challenge at heavyweight. So, of course, that was interesting. But that was during lockdown, so everything was a moving target. And especially in Latvia, you couldn't put shows on here. So, you know, he's someone who's, when he boxes in Latvia, obviously not a media market like the UK or the US. So he's very reliant on that big gate, and that wasn't possible at the time. So, you know, we looked at all different sorts of fights at heavyweight. Actually, we were looking to do a Mairis Whack fight to get him out. But that wasn't possible, because the event had to be called off because of Corona. And then then the Fury Joshua fight didn't take place. So we looked at it and said, actually, you know, you are the number 1 cruiserweight on the planet. We got to roll, you know, and the best way to roll, of course, is to defend your world title. Then entered this mandatory discussions with a Polish challenger. Then his team had all sorts of legal issues, and now we do the voluntary. We've got a mandatory, which is also due coming up. But of course, there's also the situation ongoing with a Kalle, you know, which is a great fight. There's a few great unifications out there. He has sort of been through that mill. You know, obviously 2 times in the World Boxing Super Series, that legendary fight against Alexander Usyk, which was down to the wire. You could have had it either way, last round. In fact, if the last round would have been scored a draw, you would have, or if you would have nicked the last round even, it would have been his fight. And if the fight would have been a draw, it would have gone to the 4th official, according to World Boxing Super Series rules, and the 4th official had a winning a round. So it would have been, you know, it would have had the final Briedis Garcia, and Usyk would have lost in the semi-final. You see the way that there's that film, you remember that Gwyneth Paltrow film, Sliding Doors? Yeah, it's like one of those, you know, what would have happened had it been that. And but you know, he's you know, he didn't get his head down too much, and he was lucky to get another bite at the apple with the second World Boxing Super Series. And I mean, you know, that final performance against Dorticos, who, you know, is such a great cruiserweight as well, was absolutely fantastic. And very difficult times in the middle of lockdowns everywhere, and we somehow managed to get it on in Germany. And it was, yeah. So at the moment he's very much a cruiserweight. I see him doing, you know, I don't know what order it will come in, but I see him doing the mandatory and the unification fight, and then look at it. You know, I think the heavyweights. You know, I'm still recovering from Saturday night. I mean, it's just on fire at the moment, isn't it, Dan? It's on fire.
Is Fury unbeatable, as a lot of people are saying? And if he's not...
No, he's not unbeatable. There's no heavyweight. First of all, there's no boxer in the world that's unbeatable. And heavyweights, by the definition of heavyweights and what they bring in the ring, every heavyweight, even when they're as good as Tyson Fury is beatable on the night. You know, it's as simple as that. You know, they're carrying a huge amount of weight in that ring. I mean, I skipped physics at school, but I've been told it's something like force, speed, velocity, and mass adding up all together in terms of knocking something out. And the heavyweights carry that. And, you know, for that simple reason, no one's unbeatable. You know, there's no unbeatable heavyweight, with the exception of, you know, Rocky Marciano, winding back the years. But there's no unbeaten heavyweight world champion to retire unbeaten. And I do think that, you know, you look at fighters like Gideon White, very good heavyweight. You roll the dice, and he's rolled the dice a lot of times. But, you know, we saw in the first Povetkin fight, once, you know, sometimes you roll the dice and it goes wrong. Yeah, he came back, he did the right thing and put that straight. You know, Lennox Lewis, you know, arguably, well, not arguably, in the top 5 of all time heavyweights for me, at least. He got put wrong and he put it right. You know, so I'm unbeatable. No. As much as I love Tyson, nobody's unbeatable. I think he'd be the first to admit that as well. Maybe not on the record, but off the record. You know, his knowledge of the game, and I've said this before. You know, is, you know, he came out that nutsack as a boxer. It's as simple as that.
What an image.
Excuse the language, yeah, the image. But I thought that interview with Pete Fury was fantastic. The one where he was talking about that, but it's true. It's true. Look at the DNA, and you know, if you're from a family with artistic backgrounds, your dad was a painter, your granddad was a painter. I'm sure you're going to somewhere be able to pick up a paintbrush. You know, his granddad, great granddad, this is a fighting family, you know, so he's got that already. You know, he was learning boxing from probably the same time as he was walking or crawling. So it's not, this is somewhere, and you can see the calmness in the ring. And you know, often fighters talk afterwards. And when he went down in the 4th, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, Tyson's down. He's going to get back up. You know, he knew exactly how to use the count. Knew exactly what he was doing. That calm composure is there. You know, some guys, they panic, they jump up, and they run to the middle of the ring, and they want to get back in it, and then they realize, oh my God, I'm wobbling. Yeah? And I'm thinking, why are you running back in? It's called an 8 count. You can use that full thing. Make sure you don't lay down till 8 seconds like Tyson did in the first fight. That's taking that a little bit far, but use the time. You know, trainers always say, pick a point, you know, focus and get your thoughts back. But the calmness, and you can't teach that. Tyson has that, and that's something you can't teach a boxer. It's a natural. You can say certain things. You can say, look, this is what you do to manage the panic, because it's a natural thing. You go, oh, Dan, you're panicking, Christ. But the way he does it, it's, for me, it's like a a great Formula One driver. He'll have a spin, get back at it, you know. Other ones, they're out the race, you know. So fantastic performance, Rocky-like stuff. And if I'm being critical, Tyson made too many mistakes, you know, and he'll look at that. I do think that's much down to the sort of 19 months he had out. But he'll look at that fight and think, I can be better than that, because he did have the knockdowns. That shouldn't have happened, but it can happen against someone who has that phenomenal right hand like Wilder does. I think he took his eye off a bit, you know, coming out the third round, having him down. You know, it was sort of a, you know, if you like, for football fans, you know, when you score one and then you get back celebrating and then suddenly the ball's in the back of your own net. A little bit similar. The difference is this is punching and they're down. So once again, what a fantastic reaction to that happening. So yeah, I mean, for me, and I think for everyone today, that is the best heavyweight on the planet.
How do you think Filip Hrgovic would approach a Fury fight?
I think that he would approach it. He'd look at the Wilder fight, and he'd think Wilder can't box. Hergovich can box, and Hergovich has a chin. You know, going back to Vitaly Klitschko, I can't remember a heavyweight having that chin at that level.
Well,
certainly we've at least. So it's you know, he'd go toe. I think he would like to go toe to toe. I think he's much physically stronger than Wilder. You know, and I think he'd fancy it toe to toe. You know, I do. I think boxing, you know, much is made of boxing prowess, and Tyson has all that. So, you know, you're not good off if you try to get too clever with it. I think if you're Filip's size, Filip's power, his chin, you got to go toe to toe. You know, I think that, and I think it'll be a fantastic fight.
Now, we'll talk about the Newcastle show in a minute, but you were at Wembley, of course, at the Sky Sports New Era launch. But I'm sure you've watched the broadcast version of it back since then. What did you make of it? Because there's been a lot of feedback. I spoke to Adam Smith about it yesterday. Some things worked, some things less so. What did you make of the presentation aspect? You
got me on the wrong foot here. I haven't watched it back.
Oh, right, okay.
But I've watched individual fights back, but I haven't watched it in its entirety, I must admit. Yeah, day off the job, sorry.
That's
but
right.
But I would say is the new viewing numbers are fantastic. They've gone for a more compressed format. Sky, which seems to work very well in terms of, if you look at the numbers, they're fantastic. They're utilizing different platforms. So, you know, I think it's a Facebook stream and things like this. Which, bless you, Dan. Bless you, Dan.
Thank you.
And lucky we're on Zoom here, eh? But you know, at the end, that's what our expertise is, putting on good fights, great fights, hopefully. You know, we can match them. We can't make them great because the boxers have to go and do that, but we match them. The broadcaster, I'd rarely, you know, I'll use, you know, experience from a couple of decades of putting on shows with a hell of a lot of different major broadcasters, and in many different countries. But ultimately, that's their bread and butter, isn't it? You know, it'd be like them saying to me, "Oh, well, no, he's got these rear left hooks all wrong," and you know, that's something that I think that the format they've gone for is very good at attracting new fans from, ultimately, let's face it, the football, because that's what Sky is. I mean, Sky is the home of the Premier League. I know there's some others that have it as well, but if you look for a match from, you know, Sky, a football match, you're going to go to Sky first, aren't you? And that is something that boxing has to capitalize on. It's always, I find it always a bit sad, but it will always be the case. We are a niche sport. We're a very attractive niche sport, and we're a massive sport on big events. But this is about creating a consistent product on a huge platform. And Sky is obviously a gigantic, the biggest pay platform in the UK. I think probably the biggest. No, certainly it's the biggest pay platform in the whole of Europe. So, you know, they'll know their stuff. You know, they'll be like me, you know, advising. I was going to come up with a terrible one there. You know, no. So listen, it's you know, that's what their expertise is. They've clearly got it right on the first one because the numbers were sensational. And of course, as a hardcore boxing fan, like I'd probably say you and I are, you'd say, oh well, why weren't there more cards? You know, why wasn't more on the main channel? You know, but it was accessible still. So I think the hardcore, we'll go everywhere to find it. You know, I mean.
Yeah, it's fair.
That's. I mean, I was even on Saturday night. I was sitting there, and I actually made it through to the fight. And I was going through, obviously, you know, that by the way, those undercard fights. I felt really bad for Top Rank and PBC because I think they spent a lot of money on those two heavyweight fights. They were absolutely appalling. That is that's the negative side or the bad side of being a promoter. You put the money in. And you get shit like that out. I mean, that Cuban Sanchez against Ajagba, I've never seen such a negative fight at heavyweight when they're boxing in that position right before a massive heavyweight, huge heavyweight fight. You've just got to go out there and do your thing. Go out on your guard if you have to, but just you've got to go and roll it. And they were watching two counter-attacking boxers against each other. But it was. Don't blame the promoter on that. They put them in the ring, paid them a lot of money to go and do that, and they didn't perform. So you know, anyways, it was pretty distracting. No, I was watching that. You know, like some of the hardcore. I can't get BT. Have you got a stream of it? And these were quite. I'm not going to say names. No naming names. We know a friend of mine, so I'm not going to mention his name. But another boxer was saying, oh, I can't get the thing. So hardcore boxing fans will always find the content. And that's so that the fact that it is out there and Sky have done it in this way, I think it looks like it's going great. You know, I think you have to look at everything 6 months in. You can't look at it after a show.
You'll be getting a letter from Frank in the morning, I'm sure. Chris Eubank Jr. obviously out on the Newcastle show on Saturday. Yeah. How disappointed was he to not be out on the Wembley show at short notice when it fell through after everything he's been through?
Well, Chris is extremely professional, so you don't get much out of him like that. He looks at it, analyzes it, and you know whatever it is. So it was a very weird week. And it started, you know, on the Sunday. Had to inform him, look, LB is out. The original opponent with COVID. Can't argue with that. We had a reserve in Muratov. Actually, we had two reserves. Muratov out of Virginian, who is now the opponent for the other one. We went with Muratov for the simple reason that it was easier for him to get in, and we checked the weights, and Muratov was just slightly in a better position, and he arrived in the UK. And there's certain tests you need to do in the UK that are different to abroad. There was no issue as such with Muratov, but the things you need to do in the UK, they then take 3 days to come through tests. Those tests needed more testing, and the time wasn't there. So we then even looked on the Friday night at another replacement. Found something off the card. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was. I see you grinning. Everyone knows who it is anyway, so I don't need to say it. But I wasn't. We were tossing up. Is it just about getting him out, or and. I think the ultimate decision to push it 2 weeks was the correct one.
And now he's back out, as you said, against the guy who was the reserve previously. What does he bring to the table? What can he bring out of Eubank?
Oh, I actually seen him develop as a kid. His dad was a boxer who boxed for my old man back in the must have been the 90s, I'm guessing. So his boxing family. Very, very popular in his area. He boxed on the undercard of WBSS when Callum Smith beat Nicky Holscomb in Nuremberg. Big ticket sitter down there. I don't think there'll be too many coming up to Newcastle. And you know, he hasn't lost in 7 years. You know, and he certainly seems up for it because he's got the raging up there because he thought he got the fight already for Wembley, so he was making weight. So I'm not, you know, and I'm not saying sometimes as a promoter you do leave that decision a couple of days to tell him no because you want to make sure that the other opponent is okay. So yeah, he's got the ump with us. He's got the ump with Junior because he thinks he swerved him.
Well, at least he'll be on weight.
Listen, we know he's coming to fight. I think his aspiration is as a German boxer is to get a contract with us. So he's out there to perform. And you know, he's got tall order. But once again, I said it before the last fight. It's not so much the opponent here. We got to also gauge Eubank on what he's been through. The camp, you know, wasn't by any means the places he's been to emotionally in the last few months and physically with his COVID. You know, it's been a rough journey. And you know, this fight is about signing off on that camp. That's why it was so important. You know, we could have also said, look, let's leave it, let's get him out in a bigger fight in December. But for us, it's a little bit, you know, you do the camp, he wants to sign that off in his head. And he put out some pretty emotional posts on the Saturday of the fight before, unfortunately, I had to put the call to him. And, you know, that shows what this is about for him a bit, you know, and people could criticize, and they love to criticize the Eubanks as they love to criticize Eubank Senior. But ultimately, it doesn't really bother him. He's on his mission. And I think on this one here, I think people, you know, who haven't got an empathetic feeling for where he's at, if, you know, I mean, that's for me very, very odd, but okay, well, I'm not going to judge it too much. And I think it's really going to be an emotional night for him, wherever it was and whoever it's against. I think this is about signing off this camp and burying it, you know, and moving on, and because I think this camp has taken its toll, you know.
And if he comes through, all being well, who's the big fight next up against?
I mean, we'd like him out in December again, and that's what we're working on. Now, clearly, Dan, you've been around the sport long enough. You're not going to ask me any silly questions. I know that. So, no, people, it is not Golovkin. It is not Joe Saunders. It is not Andrade, who, by the way, is fighting, I think, in November. So, you know, don't ask questions like, is it this fight? Is it that fight? Well, it can't be. Yeah. So, you know, you're not going to do a fight like Golovkin, which is a stadium fight, pay-per-view, perfectly made, by the way, for next summer. It won't be none of them. You know, it will be a very, very interesting fight. That's what I was. Could
it be Liam Williams?
I love a Liam Williams fight, you know, but there's a lot of domestic names that, and I don't want to swerve this thing. We've had a you know, the timing isn't on. From there to it's October 16th on Saturday, and then if you're boxing in December, you can work the amount of weeks out, you know. So yeah, I mean, I love the Liam Williams fight. I think it's a fight that will sporting wise, you'd straight away say any boxing man would say that's a good fight. You look at those two, that's a good fight. That's a bit of a war potentially. But the build up for me as the promoter is also it's also going to be, it's not going to be boring, is it? So, you know, that's a great fight. Someone mentioned the other day, Danny Dignam, also interesting fight. You know, there's a lot of fights around there. I'm just saying, don't expect it to be, you know, Golovkin at Christmas, the week before Christmas. So by the way, he's going to fly off 2 weeks afterwards and fight Murata in Japan. You know, some of the questions, please, people, and some of them are actually sort of boxing experts even saying this. I'm like, I know it's been locked down. And I know that at the moment you're seeing big fights made with a lot smaller thing, but it's not, you need this, you need that to go out and make those fights that period of time, and yeah, that's something that obviously that we look at the path, and it's we're not in a rush as that sense. We had everything lined up for a world title fight around now actually, but things changed because of certain things that were moving, and we took it as a team decision to move in this direction. So it's all coming. It's all on a good path. It's not the first path we've guided before, and it's not the first path you've followed before, Dan. With following fighters over the years, from the media side of things. So, I don't think we're making any mistakes here. I think we've looked at, his period of time with the PBC there was a lot of inactivity, not necessarily down to the PBC, but with COVID and a lot of other stuff. He had a run out. He fought. He fought, and what was the name of his opponent in? I've gone blank now. He had a fight in the Barclays Centre against actually very good middleweight. Korobov. Yeah, sorry. Thanks for that. Yeah, I went a bit blank there. But Korobov. Actually, I tried to sign him when he left the amateurs. One that got away, but. That fight ended after I think it was a couple of rounds, and So he didn't, even that fight didn't help him really. So he's not all about the money. He's also about developing as a sportsman, and that part the last couple of years has not been good. Yeah, let's put it that way. He went from the fantastic high of beating James DeGale, and then unfortunately there was things that caused inactivity.
Now, before I let you go, because I'm going to go and speak to Harlem Eubank shortly, another one of your guys who's on the Latvia bill this weekend.
Yeah, it's a split between the Eubank families this weekend. We split them up across Europe.
You signed them and then you split them straight away.
Yeah. Good stuff. Now, they will be boxing together, though, in future. We're going to do some shows together.
Glad to hear it. Now, one thing I want to ask you about before I do let you go, some kind of speculation, I'm not going to call it news, broke yesterday about DAZN, a broadcaster that you've worked with. They sent a survey out to their subscribers asking about the possibility of paying for pay-per-view in the future. They used Dillian White against, I think it was Andy Ruiz, as the example. Would you pay, I think it was $29.99 for this on pay-per-view, which caused a lot of consternation among fans because it seemed to be an indication that they were considering a pay-per-view platform in the future, having come onto the scene saying pay-per-view was dead, we'll never do pay-per-view. What do you make of that? And does it compromise them if they then go back on what they said and create a pay-per-view platform?
I'd say that I think, what is the pricing level of DAZN in the UK at the moment? $7.99? $7.99. That's not sustainable, I don't think, for them. But they have a very, OTT platforms all have different business models. $7.99, let's face it, that's £8. Yeah, the content you get on DAZN is fantastic. If we get all the fights that they've been doing in the past in the UK, or let's say Eddie's been doing in the past in the UK, if we get all those on DAZN and we're paying £8 a month, you can't knock it. Yeah, but ultimately, it's not a public broadcaster. It's a business. Yeah, and I think it's very fair as a business to go out to consumers and say, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? It's talking to them, isn't it? So I think to knock the move to talk to them is wrong. You shouldn't knock that. Yeah, I think that's, we all, in whatever we're doing, we try and understand our consumer, and by doing that, I think that's a very positive move. I've never heard of a broadcaster before going out there and saying, would you mind doing this? Listen, that doesn't stop you saying, fuck off, no way, right? You can, sorry, again, my language, crikey. It's fine. It's early in the day. We
expect it. We've got the bleep machine.
But you understand what I'm saying. Better to converse with your consumers and be in that way, But at the same time, I think it's also unfair for a consumer, and that's in the UK, me as well. I mean, I subscribe to different things, but I think, you know, the £2 entry point, that was obviously to build up a database, and that everyone can see that. But they also have to find their optimal pricing level, and do they want to keep it low and charge a bit more pay-per-view for major fights? I don't know. At least at least you keep your monthly costs in the household down, and you can then say, oh, actually, I'm on holiday for that fight, or I can't be bothered with that fight, or I've got to wash my hair that evening. You know, but you understand what I mean. So there is an argument. You're not going to get around that. You're going to need broadcast money to make big fights in the UK. The reason that big fights have taken place in the UK in recent years is the success of Sky box office. Yeah, we can argue all day long what we think about pay-per-view. That is the reason. That is the reason you've seen names like Triple G come over. It's the names you've seen reasons like Klitschko come over. That's the way you attract international names over. You do not have in the UK a public broadcaster willing to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 million pounds on an event. Now, just the people who are now saying, Kalle, you're off your rocker, why should they do that? Well, my friends, I'll tell you something, yeah? That Hungary game last night, for whoever watched it, I didn't, yeah? And I'm a big football fan, and I followed England home and away for many years, but I didn't watch it. That was about 4 million quid, 4.5 million quid, wow. Right? Yeah. So just let's keep this, you know, it's not big bad boxing here, yeah? This is not going into the promoter's left pocket, yeah? This is taken to finance an event, like it is taken to finance a football event. No different, yeah? And that is something that I haven't understood, and I've dealt with media rights since 2001. I don't get it. I won't get it, and it's worked. By the way, in Germany, you have a big fight, and you talk to the free-to-air terrestrial broadcasters, and they're willing to stump up that sort of money. Not quite on the German national team level, but that theory for me, I still haven't got it, how we're going about with our public money when it comes to boxing. So they're showing now they're doing MMA. I saw some recently, BBC's doing MMA, but they won't do boxing. Crikey, what have we done wrong? I mean, the days of Audley Harrison are over now. I think it's time to move on. Look at this sport that's thriving in the UK. Look at it when it's being done at the pinnacle. We've seen 2 big weekends. Yeah, Joshua, Fury. Yeah, those fights on the Beeb. Okay, ITV is a private station, but on the BBC would do 15 to 20 to potentially 25 million viewers. It would hit levels close to World Cup matches of England. I'm 100% sure of it. And why are they paying, I don't know, the equivalent of 30, 40 million probably for a World Cup match, which brings that viewership in, and it's not even on the radar to say, oh, we'll look at doing that, and what's the pay-per-view worth? Well, let's move it over to free. So you have to look at that. So I think from DAZN to go out and say as an independent business, who luckily is in boxing, yeah, and not some other sport, and putting money into boxing, to go out and say, people, what do you prefer? Yeah, would you like this model or that model? I think it's a positive, you know.
But maybe a little naive initially to come onto the scene and say pay-per-view is dead. They probably regret saying that now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one thing that they might have realised as well is every market is different, you know. So I don't know if it's naive to I don't know the quote exactly what they said about pay-per-view being dead.
It was exactly that. It was on social media. They had like this video of Canelo with an axe hammering a TV or something. It just said, okay, pay-per-view is dead.
Yeah, I mean, of course, to come back and say that, but at the same time, in life, let's you can move on, from stuff, and you can realize that this model is right, this model is wrong. But maybe it's also them gauging a feeling for also where that pricing point is that's fair, fair to their business and fair to the consumer and fair to the, hopefully, to create the best fights. I mean, they've done a great job in bringing the big fights in the US. So, and they've done, already. I thought the Liverpool show was fantastic. I thought it was a great card from top to bottom. I know how difficult it is to sell out that venue. I've been there with Callum Smith and the World Boxing Super Series. It's a tough venue to sell, and they seemed to have a fantastic crowd. It was a good event, So, but I mean, if you look at the last 4 weeks of boxing, you've had, your two juggernauts performing, and I know that Anthony lost, but still, what a fantastic event for boxing. Yeah. I know it sounds horrible now to say for Anthony, but it's still to go out and that's a legacy. Because I'm a Tottenham fan, but to box in that fantastic stadium, which is not the Emirates, and then in between that, you've had Sky with a super viewing figure, and you've had DAZN with a great show as well. So I mean, from the UK, I'd wish that in every market I worked in. It's thriving, and so I see it as a big positive, and I'm sure, and I say that with a smirk on my face. Yeah. I am sure there'll be others joining.
Great stuff. Kalle, always appreciated. Have a great time in Latvia. I'm sure you will on Saturday night. And we hope all goes well in your absence in Newcastle as well.
It's my brother doing it. So we'll have to worry about Riga, not Newcastle.
I'm sure he'd say the same. Take care, mate.